I have nowhere else to go, she said. But his one question changed her life. He almost drove past her. And if he had, her life might have ended in that rain. There's a moment in almost every person's life where everything collapses at once. Job gone, identity gone. The person who was supposed to stay and gone. You sit somewhere public because you can't bear to be alone, but you're invisible anyway. Everyone just moving around you like you're a stone in a river. That's exactly where Serena was the night Marcus found her on the curb outside. Hannigan's diner and huddled over a single paper bag, her thin coat soaked through, her dark hair plastered flat against her face. He almost didn't stop. His shift had ended 20 minutes ago. His feet ached from 9 hours on the line. His 8-year-old son Theo was waiting at Mrs. Patel's across the hall, probably asleep in the chair by the door the way he always was. He almost drove past, but he didn't. He thought it was just a moment of simple decency. But that one choice, and the question he would ask, would change everything forever. If stories of kindness and second chances move you, stick around and consider hitting like early. Marcus Dale was the kind of man who went unnoticed in most rooms. Medium height, broad shoulders, built not by a gym but by years of hauling delivery crates and scrubbing sheet pans. At 36, he wore his hardship the way a tree grows around a scar. Quietly, completely, so that you only noticed if you looked closely. 3 years earlier, his wife Dana had died of a brain aneurysm, 4 days before Theo turned 5. She'd been laughing at something on TV when it happened. The remote was still in her hand. Since then, Marcus had constructed a life from spare parts. The morning shift at Hannigan's, the evening routine of fish sticks and homework, the 10 minutes before sleep when the apartment felt loudest in its silence. He had exactly $214 in savings, a truck with a cracked windshield, and a son who still sometimes pressed his ear to his father's chest at night, listening, as if checking to make sure the heart was still there. He never complained, to no one. There was a kind of quiet honor in simply doing what needed to be done. Integrity when no one watches, his mother used to say. He paid his bills on time even when it meant eating plain rice. He returned the extra 20 when a customer overpaid. He picked up the parking lot trash that wasn't his. He never did these things because anyone was watching. He did them because Theo was always watching. Her name was Serena Voss. She told him this, the way people offer their names when they've forgotten they're allowed to have one. Haltingly, like a gift she wasn't sure she still deserved to give. What Marcus could not have known was that 6 months earlier, Serena Voss had been the CEO of a mid-sized architectural firm with 42 employees, a penthouse in the city's East Quarter, and a calendar so full she'd once forgotten her own birthday 3 years running. By every external measure, she had been a success. And then her business partner of 12 years committed fraud using her signature. The firm collapsed overnight. The legal fees consumed everything, including, most devastatingly, her sense of who she was when you stripped away the title, the address, the corner office. She had not told anyone she was sleeping in her car. She had not asked for help. The last thing on earth Serena Voss had ever been good at was asking for help. So that night, when Marcus pulled over and a tired man in a damp work jacket leaned out his truck window and looked at her, really looked at her, she braced herself for pity, for that particular kind of discomfort people perform when they see someone falling apart in public. Instead, he said, "You hungry?" She started to say she was fine. He could see it forming on her face. "I know you're going to say you're okay," he said before she could. "But you don't have to." She closed her mouth, opened it again. "I'm not okay," she admitted. The words came out smaller than she intended. "Yeah," he said. "I know. You hungry?" He had half a container of leftover pasta from the line, 2 sodas and a granola bar he'd been saving for tomorrow. He gave her all of it. In the rain, in an empty parking lot, with no one watching and no camera, no audience, no expectation of anything in return. Just a man and a woman and the sound of rain filling the emptiness between strangers. He drove her to a shelter that night. She got out of the truck rigid with the effort of not falling apart, clutching her bag, spine straight the way people hold themselves when dignity is the only thing left. "Thank you," she said at the door. "You didn't have to." He paused, the words hanging in the air between them like something neither of them quite knew how to hold. "I know," he said, and for some reason that made her almost smile. 2 days later she appeared at Hannigan's. Black coffee, Toast, a tip twice the price of the meal. He slid $2 back. She slid them forward. He left them. She came back the next morning, and the one after that. On the fourth morning, he brought her coffee without being asked. Set it down, pulled out the chair across from her, and sat. She looked up from the napkin she'd been sketching floor plans on. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She nodded. He paused, then said it slowly, like he'd turned it over a few times before offering it. "If you weren't afraid of anything right now, and what would you do?" The question hit her like cold water to the face. Not because it was complicated, because it was the first question anyone had asked her in 6 months that wasn't about logistics, not where are you staying, not have you called a lawyer, not what's your plan. This one reached past all of that and grabbed something she'd buried. Her first reaction wasn't to answer. It was to realize she had never once asked herself that. Not when she chose her career. Not when she stayed in partnerships that weren't right. Not when she kept chasing the next title, the next milestone, the next proof that she was worth something. She had been making every decision in her life from fear. And she hadn't even known. She didn't answer right away. She looked at the window, at the rain-slicked street, at her own hands wrapped around the mug. Then quietly, "I'd rebuild. My own firm. My name on the door. No partners." "So the thing you're most afraid of," Marcus said, "is also the thing you most want to do." She stared at him. "Yes." "Okay," he said, and went back to work. Just that, no speech, no advice, okay. Later she would say that one word did more for her than 6 months of silence had. Here's something worth understanding, and it won't take long. When a person is living in sustained fear, financial terror, grief, shame, loss of identity, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center runs the show. It floods the system with cortisol and keeps the body in survival mode. And in survival mode, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term thinking, creativity, and intentional decision-making, goes quiet. This means that when we are most lost, we are also least equipped to find our way. Not because we're weak, because we're wired. Fear-based decisions look like logic. They feel like caution, but they are the brain. Choosing the familiar over the possible, choosing the known pain over the unknown chance. What interrupts the loop isn't a pep talk. It isn't a self-help book. Researchers have found that unexpected, well-framed questions, or ones that redirect attention from threat to agency, can physically shift that neural activation for just long enough to crack something open. Marcus didn't know any of this. He just remembered that 2 years after Dana died, when he was sitting on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m., genuinely unsure how to keep going, an old neighbor had sat down beside him and said, "What do you think Dana would want you to still be trying for?" It hadn't fixed anything, but it had cracked something open. He was just paying it forward. Serena didn't go home that day and instantly rebuild her life. Real recovery doesn't work like that. What actually happened was slower, messier, and honestly more impressive. She went back to the shelter and opened a sketchbook. The first time she'd drawn anything for pleasure in months. She reached out to 2 former clients who had always trusted her work. She took one small project, a family that needed a kitchen redesign. She charged less than she should have, but she did it. Then she did another. Marcus noticed the sketchbooks thickening. He noticed her sitting straighter in her booth by the window. He said nothing because some recoveries are private and should be. But she noticed things too. The way he checked his phone twice an hour, not from distraction, but from love, from the low constant hum of a father's worry. The way he always ate lunch standing at the prep counter so he could finish faster and be home earlier for Theo. The worn edges of his boots and the dignity with which he wore them. He brought Theo to the diner one Saturday. His son liked to spin on the counter stools. Serena was there, sketching on a napkin. Theo stopped spinning and peered at her drawing. "Is that a house?" "It could be," she said. "What do you think it should have?" Theo considered this with great seriousness. "A room for a telescope. And a big window so the dog can look out." "You have a dog?" "Not yet," he said. "But we're going to." Serena laughed. A real one startled out of her, the first in months. It sounded to Marcus like a window being opened in a long-closed room, like warmth returning to something that had gone cold. One evening after closing, while he mopped and she finished a drawing, the silence between them had grown comfortable enough to speak honestly into. My wife used to say, "I'd carry every heavy thing myself before asking someone to hold the other end," Marcus said, not looking up. Serena was quiet for a moment. "I know what it's like to fill the emptiness with routine," she said softly, "because routine is safe. You stop feeling it if you stay busy enough. Is it still empty?" "Less," she said. "It's less empty than it was. Like waves pulling but love anchoring." She could feel the old shame and grief trying to drag her back, but something here kept holding her in place. She was beginning to trust it. On a Sunday in November, Marcus took Theo to the lake at the edge of town, the pebbled shore where Dana used to walk. Serena came. The three of them sat on a blanket while Theo slept between them, his head on Marcus's jacket, chest rising and falling with the steady rhythm of a child who feels safe. "I think I have a space," she said quietly, watching the water. "For the office?" "For an office. It's small, but it's mine." A pause. "I think I might actually make it." The lake caught the last of the evening light and threw it back at the sky. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. She turned to him. He paused, the words hanging in the air, delicate and terrifying. "That night outside the diner. What would you have done if I hadn't stopped?" The water moved. The wind moved. Theo didn't. "I don't know," she said finally, honestly. "I had nowhere else to go. Not just the shelter, and I mean in here." She pressed one hand to her sternum. "I think I'd forgotten I was someone who deserved to be helped." "You deserve it," he said, simple, certain. She looked at this man, this quiet, tired, decent man who had given her pasta in the rain when no one was watching. And something in her chest that had been clenched for the better part of a year finally let go. "Marcus." "Yeah, thank you for stopping." He reached across the sleeping boy and took her hand. She let him. By spring, Serena Voss Design had 3 employees, 2 recurring clients, and a small office above a bookshop on Clement Street. By summer, Marcus had taken a supervisory role at Hannigan's. Better hours, enough breathing room to fix the truck's windshield, finally, and open a modest savings account for Theo. Theo got his dog, a floppy-eared rescue mutt he named Copernicus. Copernicus spent a great deal of time at the big window exactly as predicted. On a warm evening in June, the 3 of them sat on the porch of the house Marcus had rented, a real house, with a yard, watching Copernicus chase fireflies across the grass. Serena had a sketchbook in her lap but wasn't drawing. She was just watching. Theo sat on the steps counting fireflies with scientific seriousness. Marcus came out with 2 glasses of lemonade and stopped in the doorway. He took it all in, the boy, the dog, the woman who had found her way back to herself and, somewhere along the way, found her way to them, the warmth returning, settling into every corner of a life that had gone cold for so long. This, he thought, was what filling the emptiness was supposed to feel like. Not noise, not busyness, just this. Just belonging in ordinary moments. He handed her the lemonade and sat beside her. Waves pulling, love anchoring. He wasn't going anywhere. There is a kind of kindness that asks for no audience. It happens in the rain, in empty parking lots, in the small decisions we make when no one is watching, when we choose to stop, to stay, to ask the question no one else thought to ask. And here is what that question was, really. It wasn't just about fear. It was an invitation back to agency, back to the self. It reminded a woman who had been living in survival mode, amygdala firing, cortisol rising, world narrowed to the next hour, that she was still someone with a future worth imagining. Marcus didn't save Serena. Serena saved herself, but he handed her the rope. Integrity when no one watches. It doesn't ask to be recognized. It just asks to be practiced. One rainy night, one bowl of pasta, one question at a time. Most of us have a notebook in a drawer somewhere, an idea we've been sitting on, a version of ourselves we keep pushing to someday. And the question Marcus asked Serena is the same one I'll leave with you. What would you do tomorrow if you weren't afraid of anything? Don't answer it out loud. Just sit with it. Because whatever your gut says first, before your brain talks you out of it, that's probably the thing. If this story touched your heart, like the video right now, drop a comment with your own moment of kindness or the moment someone extended a hand when you had nowhere else to go. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe and hit the bell for more. Stories that restore faith in what we're capable of when we choose to be decent. Where are you watching from today?